You know that feeling, right?
Yeah.
1 minute you're just quickly checking a notification on your phone, maybe just for a second.
Uh-huh.
And then suddenly what feels like 45 minutes sometimes, honestly, even 2 hours, has just vanished.
Gone.
You're pulled away from whatever you were doing,
Yeah.
caught in that endless, almost mindless scroll. It's incredibly common and, well, a little alarming if you think about it.
It absolutely is. And the numbers back that up. On average, we spend about 143 minutes a day on social media.
Wow, that's over 2 hours every day.
Exactly. But we're talking about more than just, casual habit here. The evidence is getting clearer and clearer that something much deeper is going on. It's affecting us on a really fundamental level.
And that's exactly what we want to dig into today. This deep dive is all about understanding that profound, often kind of hidden relationship between social media and your brain.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to try and peel back the layers and see how these platforms aren't just impacting our mental health, but actually causing, well, observable, long-lasting changes to the very structure and function of our brains.
So our goal today is to really get into the science behind this, look at both the good stuff and the significant risks.
Right.
And maybe most importantly, equip you with some really practical ways to start taking back a bit of control over your digital life.
And to help us navigate all this, we've pulled from some excellent recent sources articles by experts like Emma Locher, Kaja Sander, PhD from Mindlift, and Leidan Gunter from Nevada. So let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Okay, so to really get how social media can change us, we first need to understand something pretty incredible about your brain. It's like the core concept for everything else. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's truly fascinating here is this principle called neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity, okay.
Yeah. It's your brain's amazing ability to literally change itself, to adapt based on your experiences.
Right.
Don't think of your brain as fixed, like concrete.
Right.
It's more like a dynamic landscape that's constantly being sculpted. The more you do something new, learn something, or even just repeat certain actions.
More like scrolling.
Like scrolling, exactly. The more your brain forms new connections between nerve cells, or it strengthens the pathways it already uses for that activity.
So it's definitely not static then. Every single interaction, every signal we get can actually physically reshape its wiring.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Think about it. Every single input, every signal from your eyes to your brain, like those specific patterns you get from social media platforms.
The scrolling, the pings, the fast content shifts.
All of it. Over time, that can alter those nerve pathways and even, the physical structure of your brain. Understanding this idea is, well, it's crucial for understanding the impact of our digital habits.
That's pretty mind-bending when you think about how much time we actually spend online. If our brains are that adaptable. We're pouring hours into these platforms every day. I mean, the impact must be significant. What are some of the biggest, maybe most surprising changes the research is showing?
Well, there seem to be 4 key areas where we see these changes really showing up, and they do reshape how our minds work.
Okay, lay them on us. Let's start with something we've all felt. That notification ping, right? Pulling you away from a task. Is that just a minor annoyance or is something, deeper happening to our focus?
Oh, it's much more impactful than just a minor annoyance. Social media is constantly yanking our attention around.
Yeah.
It forces us into this state that feels like multitasking.
Right.
But the thing is, our attentional systems, they have a limited capacity.
Right.
And when we constantly switch focus, jump from an app to an email, back to the app, then a task, our brains are basically operating at a reduced capacity. It's like trying to run too many heavy programs on an old computer.
So our brains are working harder, but doing less. And does this constant interruption have, actual physical effects we can measure?
It absolutely does. Research suggests that people who use social media heavily often perform worse on certain cognitive tasks.
Yeah.
And this constant distraction, it can lead to increased activity in the right prefrontal brain region. That's a part heavily involved in managing our attention.
Okay, just to be clear for everyone listening, that right prefrontal region, what does it mainly do? Is it about filtering distractions?
Good question. Yeah, it's really key for things like sustained focus, controlling impulses, and yes, helping us filter out distractions to stay on task.
Gotcha.
So when it's constantly being overstimulated by all this switching, it just becomes harder to maintain attention on one thing without getting pulled away. And some studies even suggest this constant demand can actually shrink the part of your brain responsible for maintaining attention.
Whoa, shrink. The physical shrinkage, that's pretty significant.
It is.
It really makes you wonder what else is changing. What about memory? It's so easy now to just look stuff up instantly. Does that convenience have a downside? Is our brain kind of outsourcing its memory storage?
You've hit on a really crucial point there. Studies are showing that when information is super easy to access online, a quick search, scrolling a feed, we tend to remember where we saw the information.
Like, oh, it was on TikTok, or I Googled it.
Exactly that. We remember the source, but not necessarily the actual content of the information itself.
That's really counterintuitive, isn't it?
Yeah.
You'd think taking a photo or posting would help you remember an event.
Right. But it seems we become more dependent on searching, better at finding information again, but maybe less good at actually remembering it internally. And even more surprising, like you said, documenting experiences, taking photos, posting during an event that can actually inhibit your memory of the event itself.
How does that work?
Well, it seems to overload the cognitive resources you need to actually encode the memory properly. You're using your brain power for the act of documenting instead of fully soaking in and remembering the experience itself.
That's a really powerful point about just being present. Makes you think about how we engage with anything fully, whether it's an event or other people. So speaking of connection, we often feel connected online, right? But is it the same kind of connection brain-wise as hanging out in real life?
Well, our brains actually seem to distinguish between the two. Online social networks tend to activate brain regions that are mainly involved in memory and face recognition.
Okay, which makes sense if you're scrolling through hundreds of contacts.
Exactly. It's useful for navigating a long list of acquaintances, but real-life social networks, they stimulate areas involved in deeper, more personal relationships regions tied to things like empathy, emotional bonding, complex social understanding.
That's a really interesting difference. But, for some people, online connections feel incredibly real and valuable. Is the research saying this different processing is inherently, worse for relationships or just different?
It's not necessarily about one being lesser, no. It really highlights how adaptive our brains are, but prolonged engagement, mainly with online networks, might, over time, influence how we prioritize relationships, how we perceive them, maybe even what we expect from social connections. It changes the type of stimulation, and so the brain adapts its response.
Okay, right. So finally, let's talk about something I think many of us suspect. It often feels undeniably good, doesn't it? Getting a like, a share, a positive comment. That little buzz. How powerful is that reward? Because, a like seems so trivial, almost meaningless on its own, yet it feels important. Is that feeling really rooted in our brain chemistry, or is it more just cultural conditioning?
Oh, it's absolutely rooted in our neurobiology. Social media platforms are, frankly, meticulously designed to trigger the release of dopamine.
Dopamine, of the pleasure chemical.
Exactly, the neurotransmitter linked to pleasure, satisfaction, motivation. Every positive comment, every share gives you an instant little hit of this motivation molecule. It's a very precise chemical reward.
And when you say powerful, how powerful are we actually talking here? Like a subtle nudge or more?
Well, some research has actually found that the dopamine release you get from receiving a like is comparable to the dopamine released when taking certain drugs, like cocaine.
Wow, seriously, comparable to cocaine.
That comparison alone really tells you the kind of power it holds over our reward circuits. It creates this highly addictive cycle of instant gratification. Our brains can become dependent, needing more and more engagement to get that same rewarding feeling.
And it's easier to get that reward online, maybe.
That's another interesting part. We're much more likely to share information about ourselves online. Something like 80% of users do this regularly compared to maybe only 30–40% in face-to-face conversations. So the platforms become intrinsically more rewarding just because of that bigger, more accessible audience for self-disclosure.
A dopamine hit like cocaine that really reframes the whole addictive cycle idea.
Yeah.
So it's not just needing more likes for the same buzz, but what happens when those rewards don't show up, when the post flops?
Yeah. When those expected rewards are absent, it can lead to genuinely negative emotions. We're talking feelings of sadness, emptiness, maybe anxiety, because your brain has been sort of primed to expect that hit of gratification and then nothing.
Right. So putting this all together, what does it mean for our overall well-being, our mental health? It can't be all negative, surely. I mean, people connect with friends, find support groups, learn things. There have to be positives, too.
That's a really important question, and yeah, it's definitely a mixed picture. Social media absolutely offers some very real benefits.
Like what?
Well, we see genuine opportunities for peer support, for community engagement, finding a sense of belonging, which is huge. Online communities can be vital for reducing stigma, providing emotional support.
Yeah.
Or think about people discussing health conditions or navigating tough life events together online.
Yeah, those are definitely significant positives.
They really are, and we shouldn't overlook them.
Okay, so definite positives. But then there are the risks. We hear so much about the downsides, particularly for kids and teens.
Yes, the risks linked to excessive use are significant and increasingly concerning, especially for younger people whose brains are still developing rapidly. Experts consistently highlight issues like body image dissatisfaction, cyberbullying is a big one, addiction, increased loneliness, and that fear of missing out, FOMO.
FOMO, right.
And what's particularly striking, and some of our sources, like from MindLift, point this out, is how these constant social comparisons and the need for digital validation can actually alter the brain's reward sensitivity over time.
How so?
It can potentially lead to a kind of chronic dissatisfaction, even when you're not on social media. And generally, excessive usage has been linked pretty clearly to a decrease in overall well-being and life satisfaction. People who are at risk of addiction tend to report more symptoms of depression and lower self-esteem. So, yes, valuable resources are there, but it's crucial to acknowledge the potential for real psychological harm, especially with heavy use. It really is a double-edged sword.
Okay, this can sound, well, a bit daunting hearing about all these brain changes and the risks. It almost feels like it's just happening to us.
Right.
But the good news, I guess, is that understanding this stuff gives us power back, doesn't it? It gives us some agency. So what can we actually do about it? How do we take back some control?
Absolutely. Just becoming aware of this relationship between social media and your brain, that's the critical first step. And yes, there are concrete, actionable things you can do to protect your focus and your well-being.
Okay, great. Lay it on us. What's strategy number one?
First, really try to choose single tasking over multitasking. We talked about how social media overuses our attentional systems, right?
Yeah, running at reduced capacity.
Exactly. So consciously commit to doing one thing at a time whenever possible. Focus on that email or that conversation or that work task. It gives your attentional systems a much-needed break. And honestly, it improves your performance too.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Our brains just aren't wired for constant switching.
Okay.
What else?
Second, take frequent breaks. This sounds simple, but it's effective. When you are browsing social media or even just working online for a long stretch, step away often. Even just short breaks allow your attentional system to recover.
And it helps with memory too, right? You mentioned that.
Yes, exactly. It helps information transfer better into your long-term memory because your brain isn't constantly juggling everything in its immediate working memory.
Simple, actionable. Okay, number 3.
Third, maybe the toughest one for some, set a hard limit on your social media use.
Uh-oh.
Treat it like candy, Moderation is key. You can use apps that actually lock your social media after a certain time, or just use your phone's built-in screen time settings to track and limit yourself.
Is there a recommended limit?
Well, some research suggests that limiting usage to around 30 minutes per day can lead to a significant reduction in anxiety, depression, and feelings of loneliness.
30 minutes a day. Wow. I'm reflecting on my own habits, and that feels challenging, but
Yeah.
definitely puts it in perspective. Okay, what about dealing with those constant pings and alerts?
Fourth, and this is often a crucial first step for regaining control, turn off social media notifications, almost all of them, if you can.
Just off.
Yeah. By deciding when you check your feeds, you're no longer at the mercy of those constant alerts demanding your attention. It helps eliminate those endless distractions and lets you engage with social media on your terms, purposefully, not just reactively.
That immediately gives you back a sense of control over your own attention, doesn't it?
It really does.
Okay. What about documenting our lives?
Hmm.
We talked about how that affects memory.
Right. So fifth, wait to document experiences. If you're at a concert or seeing something beautiful in nature or at a family gathering, try to immerse yourself fully in the moment first.
Be present.
Exactly. Wait until after the main experience is over to scroll through your photos or post about it. This helps you actually be present, and like we discussed, it significantly improves your recall of the event itself because you weren't diverting those cognitive resources during the experience.
That really drives home the memory point. Okay, and finally, you mentioned something we're doing right now as an alternative.
Exactly. Sixth, listen to auditory stimuli. Instead of always consuming visual content scrolling feeds, watching short videos, which is highly demanding on your attention.
Right.
Consider listening to podcasts like this one, or audiobooks. Auditory information is generally far less demanding on your attention systems than visual stimuli. It allows your brain more capacity while you're still taking in information, still learning, gives your visual cortex a needed rest.
What an incredibly insightful discussion. Seriously. We've seen how social media isn't just, a casual pastime. It's actively shaping our brains, our mental health, from attention and memory right down to our reward systems and how we connect. But the really empowering part is knowing we do have agency here.
Precisely. That's the key takeaway. Once you become aware of these effects, even the subtle ones, you can start to intentionally change your habits. By taking these kinds of mindful steps, whether it's trying to single task more, setting those limits, turning off notifications, or just waiting to post that photo, you can genuinely claw back control over your digital habits. You can reclaim your focus and support your well-being. It's really about building a healthier, more conscious relationship with technology.
That's a really powerful way to frame it.
Yeah.
So maybe a final thought to leave everyone with.
Yeah.
Given how deeply social media taps into our basic neurobiology, how it's literally reshaping our brains, what does digital literacy truly need to mean in the future? It has to be more than just knowing how to use an app, right?
Absolutely.
And how do we both collectively as a society and just individually start to cultivate a new kind of maybe brain hygiene in this incredibly hyper-connected world we live in now? Something to definitely chew on long after our chat today.